I'm so glad I prepaved for the best workshop of 2013.
Yeah.
This has been a great workshop.
Because we're out on the leading edge. Because we are where we are and reaching for more. And you are finding resonance with the whole of who you are in a profound way.
And the mantra that I use for myself is to be on the cutting edge of the leading edge. And that's what it just feels like all the time.
That's where all the fun is.
It is. I'd like to take a few words from the English language and play with Abraham. Because I'd like to, they're words that seem perfectly good, but they've been I don't want to say maligned, but used in a way that makes them not feel as good when you think about them. And the first word that pops into my head is worship. From Abraham speak or Abrahamese or source energies, put worship into a perspective that serves us well.
We've never used the word.
No, I know you haven't. I'm not saying you have, but the word...
So use it in some context, and we can respond to your context.
Well, when I think of the word worship, I'm thinking it's usually often used in a religious setting, and that there is some deity to be worshipped.
If it means respect and appreciation, then it's a high-flying word.
Okay.
If it means you are greater than I, and I am lower than you, then it doesn't serve you. And the reason that the word doesn't feel good when you say it under those conditions is because the source within you finds no one higher than you.
Got it. Another word is the word privilege. Because when you hear people get up and if they're giving a speech saying, I feel privileged to be here, it sounds like that in that respect that they weren't feeling good and now they're feeling better, but that they're still not 100% sure of their worthiness.
We don't use that word either.
Right.
But privilege is something that is assigned by another person to another person. And since we believe that you are the creator of your own reality, then, in other words, under those conditions, you could say, I feel appreciated, or I feel honored, or I feel, in other words, there's nothing wrong with the word.
Right.
But the reason that it doesn't have vibrational integrity for you in the context of everything else that we've been talking about is because it sounds like it's an accolade or a pronouncement of value that is being assigned by someone else to someone, and no one else can assign your value.
Right.
You assign your own value.
Right. Another pair of words is assets and liabilities.
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons. And finally, a word
Contrast.
Okay.
Contrast. Reasons to focus.
Okay. And a word that when I hear it...
we're talking right over the top of you, don't apologize to us. There are some liabilities that can be assets.
It's all perspective.
Because contrast is such a good thing.
Right. A particular word that when I hear, especially it's often described within I don't know if I want to say the word the metaphysical community, they talk about service and serving others. And when I hear that word, I just bristle because it's like, you're not doing enough and you should do more. Can you put that into a better frame of reference so I can feel better about that notion?
I don't use that word either. But the reason that it feels off to you is because usually it's someone on a lower flying disc that's trying to motivate you to do something that they need you to do so that they will feel better. And so they're asking for your service, and you can sort of tell where they're at by their response if you don't jump through the hoop that they've put before you. If you don't serve them in the way that they sought to be served, then they pronounce you as doing something inappropriate. You're selfish, or you're inappropriate in some way.
But when the word
But the fact of the matter is, when you are on your high-flying disc and you have the source that creates worlds flowing to you and through you, you are of such service to this world because you're extending that source energy to them in a way that they might not have been able to receive it before if it were not for your concentration and focus and redistributing of it.
The context in which that word is used, though, is if someone is speaking to a group, they're saying, service is such a good thing to help these people or to help the disadvantaged, to help that. And I know that if you see them as disadvantaged, that you're not going to be of any help to them because you're going to be where they are, like poor you, and now I'm going to come and offer you from my poor you place, not much. But when they talk about that, they say that it's such a good thing. And so I don't mean one person telling me to do something in service to them. I'm sort of talking about the general pronouncement that we are here to serve, and that we should do that, and do that in a way that is helping the less fortunate. And I'm just using that word very generally.
Well, since you are an extension of source energy, you are of enormous service to source energy because we get to flow to you and through you, and that serves us.
Right.
when you are interacting with others, you can tell when you are of pure service and when you are not. And if we are calling service the extension of the well-being, in other words, let's say in the context of society as it is asking you for service, that there is an assumption that there are those who are more prosperous who then would serve others. So let's use that parallel and say that there is this stream of source energy that is available, that you have access to, that you're wanting to distribute as best you can. And often in that inspired alignment, you take all kinds of actions that are more detailed, more momentum service. In other words, a kind word is a nice thing, but a kind word in pure alignment is a nicer thing. A kind thought is a nice thing. A kind thought in alignment is a nicer thing. A kind word in that alignment is nicer still. A kind action in that alignment is nicer still. But the question is always about the condition of the recipient. In other words, service has to be met by someone who's open to receive. You get what we're talking about? Sure. And so a lot of people are feeling like they must not be doing it right because they're doing everything in their power to be helpful, and people aren't being helped. Esther starts almost every day out when she gets out and about in one of her vehicles with a few $20 bills in her pocket. And she watches for opportunities to pass them on. And there are plenty of them. And she decided not to be too discretionary about who she chooses to give it to and who not to. She just decides if there's someone standing on the corner and with or without a sign, and they make eye contact with her, she's going to roll her window down and she's going to hand them $20. Now, as she hands them the $20, that's when she tries to define how well they are receiving it. In other words, do they stand on that corner and collect hundreds of dollars every day? Do they turn it over to some other organization? Is this a job for them? Does the sign really mean what the sign says? Does this really mean if you give me something, I may be able to go get something to eat? There's way too much to figure out on the spur of the moment. And so Esther's decided that she's just going to offer the $20, and as she is putting it in their hand, she tries to let her hand touch their hand a little bit because something nice about that. And she says to them, I hope that you are really good to yourself. And their response to that statement, she can tell right away. And in the majority of cases, she can tell that her $20 is of service. It's of service. Now, should she start handing out $100? Would that be more service? We think the amount of money that she puts in their hand is irrelevant. We think it is that she acknowledges them as a person, enough to roll her window down. She acknowledges them as a value, enough to touch them. And she acknowledges that life could be better for them as it could be for everyone if you're just good to yourself, you see. Nice. And we say, because she can't control how they receive it. She can't control what they do with it. And she does not want to judge whether it was of any real value to them, because the service was in the offering.
So it was self-serving.
It was self-serving for Esther. Self-serving for Esther. Because there's just too much to appreciate for just me.
Right.
You see?
Right.
There's so much to appreciate. There's so much to appreciate. There's so much good to see. There's so much music to hear. There's so much value to be a part of. There's so much to be happy about. Right. There's so much life to live. There are so many places to go and people to see and things to do. In other words, you are extensions of source energy. Extension of source energy. And source energy feels good flowing through you.
My final thing.
Talk about service.
Right.
That's worth contemplating. Source never goes away. Source never stops thinking about you. And source never stops offering. Nice service, huh?
Very nice. What I've been really excited about the whole conversation surrounding step 4. And what I'd like to have you do is, a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, at a workshop, you did for someone in the hot seat a Rampage of Invincibility. And when I read over that and I listen to it, there's sort of a step 3 tone to it. It's because there's a lot of I'm beginning to, I'm starting to, I'm finally getting the idea that.
If you watch the beginning of that, there's
Right.
a YouTube clip. It's worth watching, and you'll understand what he's talking about. But this was a person who was really in an uncomfortable place.
Right.
And so it was with powerful concentration that rampage was able to happen at all under those vibrational circumstances. The power of the desire in that person was very, very strong. Otherwise, it would not have happened.
What I'd like to have you do is revisit that rampage today from a step 4 place.
Let's start in this place. You can't just jump right into a rampage.
Right.
Because there's a lot of momentum in what we are calling a rampage. So if you've noticed, if you've watched us in these processes, we always start out in general places. And our intention in offering them is always for everyone who's participating, and there are thousands of you in this room and around the world who are participating in this conversation. And it is our intention that all of you join this rampage, which means we want to start the momentum at a place that anyone can get on.
Right.
So we start with the things that you know for sure. You start with the things that are easy for you to feel. And then we usually stay pretty much there on these rampages. In other words, if you've noticed, and there have been dozens of them, we don't usually get into specifics that will cause you to challenge them. Because anything that causes you to say, oh, no, that's not happening for me, then you get left out of the rampage. You get left out of the resonance. And the whole point of it is just to stay in that vibration of appreciation long enough that you begin to feel the energy move, you see. And also we want to say to you that the benefit of the service that we offer with the rampage is long-lasting. Because it's a vibrational adjustment more than it is I've got hold of something that I can go home and work with. And really, in all of the hours that we spend together in these kinds of conversations, it is the vibrational improvement or adjustment that is the benefit of participating in something like this. And of course, the words can't be separated from that, but we want you to leave here not so much with a plan of action other than I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to get on the high-flying disc. But we want you to pay attention to the renewed love that you feel, the renewed love that you have allowed yourself to discover because you started out simple. Now, in some ways, this is like just waking up because, bless your hearts, you've been listening to us for a few hours here, and you are close to being on that high-flying disc. In other words, just from the conversations that we've had, you're right there. So this will be something that will be fun and easy for you. So we're going to speak to you about you from our perspective. Because, after all, this is our rampage, so we're going to speak it from our point of view. We like that you are here in these bodies, an obvious thing. Beautiful clumps on chairs and beds and tables all around the place. We like that you're here in these physical bodies, but we like even more that you are here focused with us here and now. It's a really nice thing that you have made the decision to play with us about deliberate creation, because that's who you are. You are deliberate creators who have come forth into this physical experience with the express intent of focusing, harnessing, utilizing the energy that creates worlds and flowing it toward the things that you deem valuable. You could not be better at making those choices because you were born ready to make those choices. And you have divinely come forth with a perspective from self that makes you selfishly motivated and selfishly interested. And that is such a wonderful thing, because the perspective of self is all that you ever have. You will never be able to understand accurately what anyone else really thinks about anything else, or what anybody else really feels about anything